Hi everyone and welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm your host Mart, and on today's show I have another really exciting guest. Well, have you ever wondered how the long distance dating thing works? Well, today I'm going to have a chat with someone who's going to share her point of view about all of that. Laura Nieddu, it's a warm welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great and unexpected invite.
Well, that's got you a little bit off guard if you weren't expecting it then.
Well, I wasn't expecting it the day that you sent the invite, put it that way. I actually knew that you were going to invite me for tonight. So I was actually reading a little bit of my old notes about my dates and things that I'd been on throughout the travels, and prepared a little bit for this so that I could have some sound a little bit like I know what I'm talking about anyways.
Well, that's good. I'll see if I can catch you off guard anyway. It depends on how much you've
Okay, I'm game.
Now, tell me, whereabouts in the world are you actually talking to us from tonight?
I am in Miami, Florida right now, right on the bay.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. A lot of people will be very jealous hearing that.
It was the coldest day since I've been here. I moved here 7 months ago approximately, and today it got to 66 degrees, so I was darn near freezing.
Now, you've really been on the move in your life, haven't you? Because you're originally from Napa in California, is that right?
I am. So originally I was born in Napa, but I never moved probably further than 2 hours away from Napa my 53 years of life. I moved around a lot within those 2 hour range of Napa, but I never further than that until now.
Well, there's a lot of listeners on my show that will be saying to you virtually, why would you even want to leave Napa Valley? That must be a heavenly place to live.
Absolutely gorgeous. I go back on at least when I was on the other side of the states here, when I was back in Northern California, every couple days to a couple months at the longest, I'd be back in Napa because my sister and my mom still live there. And now that I'm over here, I have already been back twice and stayed for almost a month with my sister in Sonoma. So I'll still get back quite often.
Does it change a lot between the trips when you go backward and forwards? Do you notice a lot of change there?
No, everything's the same. The growth in Sonoma and the Napa area is pretty well controlled. Now the growth where I was living right before I moved to Miami in the Stockton area is growing really fast. Really not a nice town. I mean, most people know Stockton. I think it's like rated the second worst in the United States for crime and whatnot, but yet it's still growing at a really rapid pace. I was selling new homes over there, and it was not really that difficult of a job to do. It wasn't easy, but there was just always somebody buying, and we just kept buying land and building more homes. So Stockton changed a lot, not Sonoma, Napa.
Right. So we are a travel show. So what would be your top 3 tips for someone visiting the Napa area? Where they must go and visit?
Oh my gosh. For me, I'm an outdoor lover. I love nature and whatnot. So I would go to Bartholomew Park. It's a really, it's beautiful. It's acres and acres of hiking and bike trails and a museum of how the Bartholomew's even started the land. It's owned by a trust, but it's open to the public 10 to 4, and it has fabulous tasting room, little venues to have picnics, rivers and creeks and little ponds, and it's just fabulous. It's amazing to step from that little town where everybody's crowded and it's hard to cross the streets when you get to Sonoma Square. You go up 1 mile up to Bartholomew Park and you're in a whole different world. And it's absolutely gorgeous. That's my number one spot. When I go back, I go to Bartholomew Park every time.
And what about a foodie spot? Have you got a favorite foodie spot there that people should go and try out?
Oh gosh, there's so many. The General's Daughter is one of my favorites. And then Saddles is another favorite. And like something you might not even think of, what is it called? It's right on the square. Drawing a blank on the name of that. I'll have to get back to you on that. I can't think of what it is right now. But it's on the square right behind City Hall. The Swiss. That's what it is. It's called the Swiss.
Okay.
And it's this little small thing that the door looks like it's locked. It just doesn't look very welcoming. fabulous food once you get in.
Mm. Is a place called Mustard still around?
It is, yeah. It is still there. It is very good. It's just not one of my go-tos. I would go there for like a lunch or whatnot, but not for a nice dinner.
Yeah, I went there for lunch a few years ago, and it really blew me away. I was really impressed with the place, actually.
Yeah, yeah. It is very nice, but there are so many to choose from. It's probably not at the top of my list other than lunch.
Fair enough. So there you go. There's some hot tips from Laura about going into the Napa area and having a good look around. So make sure you do that if you're heading to California. Now, is this the first time you've been on a podcast show?
Absolutely.
So you're a virgin?
I am, at least in one way.
Well, I'll tell you what I do is I like to offer the opportunity to all of my guests to dedicate their particular show to someone special in their life. So who would you like to dedicate this show to today?
My son, Jared, who talked me into Nothing Changes If Nothing Changes, and I flew across the states to live in Miami. So Jared Graham.
Jared, there you go. This is a shout out to you because this will be something that you guys can keep forever and listen back to it at any stage because I'm sure we're going to have some laughs today.
That's awesome.
Now, I came across you and I thought, what a fascinating lady. This lady's got some really intriguing stories to share, and we're a travel show, and I've been looking for all kinds of, I guess, different and inspiring ways in which we can talk about travel. And I thought about love and romance, and I thought, well, people are traveling across the world all the time, or they're traveling across their country to meet someone special who they hope to develop a relationship with, and who knows, even get married. So when I saw that you were right into this and that you've got a great blog site called datingblogandadventures.com, I thought, right, I'm going to reach out to Laura and see if she'll have a chat with me. So thank you very much for coming on the show, first of all. And
thank you for the flattery of offering this. It's awesome.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people out there who are secretly trying to find love in all sorts of ways. And I guess there's been an explosion of recent years on online dating websites and all the rest of it. And, you know, when you sit next to somebody on a plane these days, you just don't know whether they're actually traveling off somewhere to meet someone special. And I thought we'd have a chat about that. So let's get into it. Tell us about the whole, I guess, dating scene as far as you're concerned, in terms of what was the inspiration to start up a blog site and start talking about this stuff.
I wish I had a really great pivotal moment that happened, but really there isn't. I've just always taken notes about everything in my life from my childhood to this day. And when I moved here to Miami, first of all, how I even ended up in Miami real briefly is just that I long story short, I quit my job, had no job to go to, no plan. I just knew I wanted out of that job. I had a couple houses in California, sold them, sold all the furniture in them, sold all my cars, put a backpack on and moved to Miami. So once I got to Miami and was hanging out in an Airbnb, writing my little stories, went on a date that particular night. Because right when I got here, I swiped because I'd been swiping for a couple of years. So I went ahead and swiped, keep myself busy, meet somebody new in the area. I was writing a little bit of the story, and I just decided I'm going to share it. I'm going to put it on Facebook and see what people think. So I'd always been private on Facebook. If you look back in my old posts, you're going to see that there was I had maybe 400 friends or something, and I just kept it private into my real estate business type of stuff. But I hit public button. I posted my date story, and it kind of took off. It was very well received. So I thought, why not? I don't have a job here. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to post my next story. So then I started reaching back into the archives of the stories that I had taken notes about and wrote those out and put them on Facebook. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, I couldn't add more friends. You're at your 5,000 limit. So I went ahead and started a group because you don't have a limit there. So I started the group and put it over there. And then everybody just started sharing their stories and their advice and tips and asking for advice and tips. And it just keeps growing to this day. I think I added another 27 members to the group today. So it just, I don't know. There was obviously a need for everybody to share, and not for necessarily a dating site. So it's not, there are some people that post in there, and it's welcome that you can post about yourself and put yourself out there as a single and looking. It is one of my topics, but it's mostly about advice and sharing. And I guess we just needed a platform for that.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just for all the listeners' sake, I'm going to put all the links to Laura's online site so that you can have that in the show notes, and they'll be able to get in contact with you. But I guess it's also, Laura, it's that time of the year where people start traveling to spend Christmas with family and loved ones. But what happens when people are single and by themselves at this time of the year? What's your story on that?
For me, myself this year, I'm not going to actually be with family. I'm going to choose to pull out of that and go do something fun as a single and just do my own thing. I've got 4 boys. They're all going to their significant others for the holidays. So it's the first time that all of them are doing something other than revolving around their, mom or their dad. So I'm going to go do something else, and I haven't decided what yet. But as far as singles in general and what's been going on in the group and what we've been talking about is just trying to own the singleness and don't be ashamed of it. Don't be afraid of people saying, why are you still single, as if it's a bad thing, like there's something wrong with you. That's the biggest thing is that I've been getting over the last 3 years. How could you possibly be single? And there's also the whole thing of where people don't want to go and be with their family anyways. So now you show up without your significant other, you've gone through a new breakup, or you're single again. It just, all of that drama, and it can be really depressing. So I want to touch more on it within the group. I'm actually past that, but the last couple of years I was really sad, and I had to suck it up to show up for any holidays. Because it was just embarrassing for whatever reason. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to help a few people through that, and help other people be able to help each other. In the group just today, they were talking about that, about how some of the ladies were so bold and the great things that they had to say about how they're proud about being single. And it was enlightening to me. I thought I was the one kind of helping and lifting, but there was more people in there that had better stuff to say than I. And there's definitely nothing wrong with being single, nothing wrong with wanting to have a partner either, but the holidays make it all particularly hard.
Now, you and I are around about the same age. Do you think age has a role to play when it comes to the stigma attached to being single?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think there's different cultures that would disagree in that when you're, in your 20s and you're not married and you haven't started a family and all that sort of stuff. There's some cultures that religious or otherwise that would be like, oh, what's going on? We got to get you, married and started and that sort of thing. But in general, I think in America, it is very stigmatized that if you're in your 40s and 50s and you're single, you're probably going to die alone, because there's nothing but garbage left out there. And now what are you going to do? You should have stuck with your marriage. You should have made it work. You're going to die alone. I've heard that actually. I've actually heard that. I think it is definitely a different, it's so different than what's going on with the younger generation trying to date. Yes, we're all using the apps. Yes, we're all busy at work. Regardless of the age. Yes, we all seem to be semi-damaged goods. The older you get, the more damaged goods you are. It is not for the faint of heart at this age, that's for sure. Now, how do you feel about it? Can I ask you? Like, you're single, so do you feel like it's tougher to be single at this age than when you were younger?
Well, I always try and put the positive spin on things, and the way I look at it is that I would rather, and I am rather happier being single than being with someone that doesn't make me happy. And
absolutely,
I think there's a lot of, you and I know this, and there's a lot of people out there that know it. There's a lot of people in marriages around the world who are incredibly unhappy, but they stay at it for the sake of staying at it. And okay, that's their call, and they will do that. But I kind of don't want to live with the regrets, and the fact that I'm single at the moment is a choice through I'd rather do that and be happy with myself than be in a situation where I'm not happy at all.
Right, because we have choices. There's choice. I could settle down. I'm sure you could settle down right now. But they're not somebody that I would want to settle down with. So I could couple up right now and have somebody to bring to the holidays. It's not who I want to settle down with. So I would rather just be come in and go as I please, happy in my own little world. I actually like to be with myself. I enjoy myself. And I'm not in need of a partner. I want one. I actually want one, but I'm not looking for it anymore. I'm just happy just being just the way it is.
Do we get ultra fussier when we get older?
Yes, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Yes. I used to think, oh, geez, when I'd see these older men, particularly while I was married, they're so stuck in their ways. They're never going to get married. I get it that they're lonely and they want us to introduce to friends, but they're just so stuck in their ways. And now here I am, and I'm the same way. I just 3 years of it. The other ladies that I've talked to, 10 years, 12 years, they've been single. I can't imagine trying to bring somebody into a mix after that long alone. How do you do your compromising now? You're so comfortable in your own routine. The compromise that has to be made. I mean, because I think if you put my marriages together, I've been married 29 or 32 years. So I can't imagine going back to that where I'm having to figure out what he wants, when he wants it. Don't you care that I wanted to watch this? I don't want dinner. I don't want that dinner. All the things, the laundry set here, all the things that come with being a couple and the compromise of it gets more difficult every year for me. The thought of that compromise.
I'm going to get into what your perfect match is a little bit later on, but for now,
okay.
I just want to have a chat a bit more about your blog site, because when I was doing my research and I came across your blog, the first thing I saw was a magnificent photograph of your boobs, and and I thought to myself, well, this is obviously an incredible woman. And when I read the blog post, and then when I went through and read the other blog post, I thought, okay, well, kudos to you, because first of all, you're obviously in a very comfortable position in your life where you feel as though you can be as transparent about every possible aspect of
everything.
Your life.
Everything. I have nothing to hide anymore. There is no shame. There is no shyness any longer in my life. I won't have it.
Do you think that's something that's missing in the world in general today? We hide behind our mask and we don't share our true selves?
I don't think it's necessarily for everybody to do what I've done. I think there's a lot of people that they're not hiding it or using it as a mask. I believe that they have put it in their past and have moved forward where I did not. I was using it as a mask. Any smile you saw on me was fake. Every marriage, I've been married 3 times, those poor men had no idea what they were getting into because I had not shared my hurt or hadn't dealt with my hurt. Everything that I had gone through was shoved so far down, it made me become a chameleon in every way. So each one of these men that I married, though they truly have their own crazy, but I need to be the craziest in a relationship. So for that, they didn't know what they were getting into. And I literally became what I thought they wanted. I did whatever it took to survive in that marriage, or even to get them in order to be in that marriage. And that was so unfair. And I don't think that a lot of people there's so many people that have been through what I've been through, but I don't think they've approached their marriages in the way that I did, and are not chameleons. They literally have just put it behind them and moved forward with their life. I did not. I kept it. I carried it. I shared it inside my head constantly, but not with anybody else. And it was just, like I said, it was very unfair to the men that I married, that I became something that I thought they wanted, and I couldn't sustain that. It eventually would fall apart because it wasn't who I really was.
What I found really interesting about what you wrote in some of your pieces was you gave the impression that there are 2 sides to every story, and you gave your version of your story, yet you left the door open for there to be, I guess, somebody else's story that you were with at the time to have their view. Do you think this is something that we neglect a lot in relationships in terms of not really truly understanding our partners?
Absolutely. There is a great TED Talk. I can't remember who it was. I wish I could. Maybe I'll share it with you when we're off, because I have it saved. But it is a great TED Talk about the story, in that we share a story, that we think is our story and the story. It is not the story. There are two sides at minimum, usually three sides to a story. And so for me to share my story and be almost almost blameful to somebody else for my troubles and everything that's happened. It was just how I felt about what was happening in my life. It doesn't mean that was the true story when you come from every side. So if I was telling this story to a counselor, like say a counselor was reading the story that you read, a counselor would most likely be like, well, there's two sides to every story, and there's another side to this that we need to bring in. And I can't do that for these ex-husbands of mine, or even, the abusers. There's another side. So I just want everybody to always remember that, even when you're sharing your story, in my dating stories, when I write my little dating stories, I was on a date with someone else. If they wrote that same story, that same date, I bet you anything, very little of it would match my date story. So there's two stories at least. And I want everybody to always be mindful of that when I'm writing things out, that this is just my version of this story. Not that it's not my truth, but
I was just going to tell you an anecdote about something from my world about that. I've got a friend of mine who's married, and every time him and his wife go away on a holiday, they journalize it and they compare their notes when they get back from their holiday
so cool.
to see how they both viewed the holiday together. And I thought that's really, really cool to do that.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. See, there's part of what I need to find, someone like that.
They've done that for the last 23 years, and I find it extraordinary that they still do it to this day, and they say it's a wonderful way to reflect on our holiday together through different eyes, yeah?
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love that idea. Absolutely love that idea. I've actually asked dates before that went well, but were just not a match, to write for me, what the date story was. And only one gentleman did, and it was when we had a FaceTime chat, because it was a long distance, if I was going to be willing to do a long distance relationship. This particular gentleman was interesting enough to me that I wanted to at least find out. I was curious. So we were doing FaceTime chatting, having a date. I was out at a bar. He was at a bar, and we had this chat and, flirting back and forth, and I'm having a drink and eating and the whole thing, but we're doing it through FaceTime. And the next day, I had not asked him to do this, but he did it because I had mentioned, gosh, no guy's ever written about me. That would be interesting. So he did. So I actually have that in my inbox where he wrote his version of the date story. So that was pretty cool. That was the first and only time that has happened.
Let's talk about long-distance relationships. Why do you think people get involved in long-distance relationships?
Oh, there's a myriad of reasons. So it depends what kind of long-distance relationship we're talking about. Is it a long-distance relationship where one of them are working far away and you have to maintain the relationship? Or is it something to where it's more like so I've had that aspect of it where my first husband traveled for work and he'd be gone 3 months at a time. Then my second marriage, we had met at 4 weddings and a funeral, believe it or not, just like the movie. And at that funeral is where we, kind of latched onto each other and decided that we were going to have this long distance relationship. And we did that for over a year. It was fabulous. It was back when we were handwriting notes and had to leave a message on the beep machine and all that good stuff. And, a year after that, he came and lived my way because I couldn't move. I had kids and wanted to keep them near their dad. But that long distance relationship worked for us. Could have I found somebody where I lived? Maybe. But it was a really small pond. I lived in a little town called Rio Vista, and I believe the population was 5,000 at the time. Right near there. And with that 5,000, at least 90% of them were related to my ex-husband. So it was a very small pool of people to be, looking out with eyes of lust in any way. So it was perfect for me to reach outside of that pond and get somebody that was further away and had nothing to do with that little town. And it worked out. I mean, we had 12 years of marriage and we had a little boy, and the marriage itself didn't work out, but we're still friends to this day. And I don't regret a minute of that relationship with him. That being said, those are 2 different long distance relationships. So now while I've been dating these past 3 years, I've been very willing to do the long distance thing again, whether it be because somebody works and travels far, because I'm fine on my own, months at a time. And I don't really have trust issues or anything like that. So when it has come up, what typically I'm finding myself right now doing with these long distance is I'm romanticizing. So I need to pull back and kind of reevaluate and use a mirror on the situation even today about why I keep finding these. I'm in Miami. I mean, there's probably 3 million people in these 10 buildings that are surrounding me right now and yet I'm not dating any of them. I'm looking at UK, I'm looking at, Arizona, California, Australia. I am literally all over the board of these people that I'm chatting with. And I think it's because I'm romanticizing it in that I'm not having to commit anything. I'm not having to worry about an actual relationship, somebody coming into my space. I don't owe anybody anything. And it's so fun to flirt from afar and then possibly meet up with them for some fabulous romantic weekend. But is it ever going to turn into a relationship? I think in my head, I'm almost hoping not. But I don't know. I don't know that, I'm still questioning that. There's, some on the radar that it could be something, but I don't know. I'm wondering if I'm just fantasizing and romanticizing things that if you actually got in my space, would I actually like you? I don't know.
How transparent are you to the people that you're communicating to about what you've just shared with me?
Absolutely 100%. The one gentleman actually has never asked, never really talked about it. It is so brand new. I don't know that he would really care, but I haven't shared it. But now the other 3 gentlemen that I'm chatting with, I have shared completely what is happening, that I am chatting with other people. I am not monogamous with my chats. I have no reason to be monogamous at this point. So if you're not okay with that you feel like there's competition or something, then I get it. You can bail. They're all still in. So it's just a matter of, we're just flirting. And if it ends up to where we actually meet up, then that would be a different thing. If I actually meet up with somebody, then I'd have to make a decision. But right now, for the chats, I'm not going to stick to one guy.
What are some of the challenges associated with these long-distance relationships and starting them off? And I'm thinking about, in particular, when you're talking about the geographical location of these people, we're talking about severely different time zones than where you're living. So how does that work out for you?
So the one that I had been chatting with in New Zealand and then recently got a job in Australia, we would chat every couple days. I hadn't heard from him in a little while, but I just found out tonight, right before this, that his granddad passed. So that's why I hadn't heard from him. But we would typically talk. I believe it was 6 a.m. his time, if I'm correct. I want to say 6 a.m. his time and 3 p.m. my time. It's been a little while since I've talked to him. And then the fellow in the UK, it was typically almost always about 4 o'clock my time. So I think it was around 10 o'clock the next day his time. That kind of thing. And then California is 3 hours difference. And then Arizona, who I talk to the most, is the gentleman in Arizona, and that we just talk all day, it seems like. So I believe we're 2 hours time difference from the Arizona.
I'm so glad.
So not too bad.
I'm so glad I got you on, because you're an expert at this. So I've got a bunch of hypothetical situations here I want to run at you and see what you give me for answers. Okay. So how long should a couple chat for before they make the decision to travel across the world to see each other?
I don't think there's a timeline on that. For the gentleman in the UK, he actually works in Iraq on the oil field, like my first ex-husband, almost the same line of work. Just coincidence, but he is, on rotation, so he would only be back in the UK occasionally. He was supposed to come here and never made it. I can't remember what happened, but something with his daughter. But I don't know what the time limit is. He had a rotation thing that was happening, but I was willing to meet with him at any time. And then let's go California. We haven't set or even talked about a time. Today, I believe he had mentioned, that he wished I could come to some Christmas champagne party that he was having at his restaurant. I said I can't. It was too short of notice.
So there's how much notice do you need before you're going to hop on a plane and go and see somebody you haven't met before?
For me, there would have to be definitely at least, I don't know, there's not an actual time. It would be how much time have we spent actually getting to know each other? Is there just stupid little texts that are going back and forth? I don't know that I would be getting on a plane anywhere for anybody with that. Now, if you're FaceTiming, chatting more regularly and have more of a conversation that's more in depth of getting to know each other, like talking about your day, sharing your day, sharing your family events, there's things that are happening in your life rather than, what are you doing? Have you had lunch? You're so beautiful. All that kind of chit chat. No, I'm not getting on a plane for nobody, no way for that kind of talk. If it's in-depth talk, like you and I are doing, we're having actual conversation, getting to know one another type of thing. I'll get on a plane. I'll go. But there's no time limit to it. It's a matter of how invested are you. There's a great Matthew Hussey video where he says, are you in the blue? Do you know which one I'm referring to?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so are you in the blue? So if I'm in the blue with any particular gentleman, I guarantee you I'm not getting on a plane. And I'm not allowing them to get on a plane and come visit me either, because I've had that offer lots of times. Who wouldn't want to come to Miami? So you come to Miami and, hang out, and it's not for me at all. So if I'm in the blue, you're not coming to Miami, and I'm not going to wherever you're at. It's got to be investment for investment. And if the investments are equal and it's really comfortable, I'll make the trip.
Does it start to sound a bit like a business deal?
No. To me, it's actually investment for investment with personal information.
So a couple getting together for the first time on a long distance date, how long should they plan to be together on that first date, do you think?
Oh, absolutely no more than 3 days. And that's not like 3 full days. That's because I did a trip to North Carolina, made the mistake of being there 3 full days. And that's where I kind of learned my lesson. That was a little bit too much. That pushed it. So I need to fly in one day. You have an evening where you get to know each other, have a drink or a dinner together. And then the next day you can hang out all day. And then the next day you need to fly home. You know what I mean? That's it. You should just figure this out real quickly. If there's chemistry, if there's a reason to, continue this once you get back home. And that particular, I believe it was North Carolina, we did not need to continue that conversation once I got back home. But I was there 3 full days. So I flew in one night. I think I flew in on Thursday night. And then I was there all day Friday, Saturday, and all day Sunday. Oh, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So that was not a good thing. So I learned my lesson there. So it should just be a couple days. Definitely just a couple days.
Okay, but what if we're talking about flying to the other side of the planet and you're going down to New Zealand to meet somebody? How long do you plan on a trip like that?
I would plan the same thing with a gentleman like that, where I would plan to spend the first evening, the next day, and then the next day after that, maybe a breakfast, but then the rest of my trip is about me being on holiday. I would be on vacation at that point, not with that gentleman. And I would make that very clear on the way there that I've flown this far. I'm going to explore this territory on my own. So
you'd basically take the opportunity to go and see the country in addition to perhaps meeting the love of your life.
Absolutely. And after I've had now time to think about the fact that I've just spent that day with that gentleman and now I'm on my own exploring this country. Do I like this? Would I ever want to move here? Did I like him? I have this whole, week to figure out how I want to handle the end of this week. Do I want to meet up with him another day before I fly back and tell him I really liked you and this was fabulous and let's try to continue this? Are you on the same page as me? Would you like to continue this? I could do that. if it wasn't, I just get on a plane and go home. And I'm like, wow, I really like that area. I wouldn't mind dating somebody from there again because I could see myself living there.
It poses another interesting question is when you go and do these visits to meet somebody for the first time, is it important to see them in their natural habitat doing their natural things? And I talk about seeing somebody over the course of a weekend when they're relaxed, they're chilled out, they're having their downtime versus when they're perhaps at work doing their stressful thing and all the rest of it. So how do you see that side of it?
That is part of the romanticizing. So if you're with somebody, what it has to do with holiday, like when I meet people here in Miami, a lot of time it's because they're here on vacation. So you're getting to see them at their best and their highest energy. So you romanticize how fun that was and how romantic that was and how sad that he left and now you don't get to see him anymore except for through FaceTime and all of that. So to me, it is very important to be able to see them in their habitat and see what was happening. We'll refer back to the North Carolina, and I apologize if it was South Carolina. I can't remember because I dated in both. But I believe it was the North Carolina. But I did get to see where he lived. So I wouldn't typically not go to a man's home. I would be at my own hotel room, and we'd meet up and visit elsewhere. But we were going by his home, and he needed to do something as we were headed out to go river rafting. I got to see his home. Holy Toledo, that was not something I could deal with. That is, I was so glad I got to see that because that is not something that could ever be okay in my world. And until then, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Chats were always either in his police car or in his truck somewhere or out on a porch. But to see inside his home was all I needed. It was all I needed going, this can never, ever happen. A woman's home is a nest, and we need to have it be our certain way to ever feel at home. And there's been several men that I've been interested in, and I could never, ever nest with them. Never. I don't care how cute they were, how fabulous they were, how much money they made, how little money they made. Their nest was so unacceptable.
How do you choose who travels to visit who? Is it a case of, like you said, I live in Miami, everybody wants to come to Miami and visit? Or is there a kind of a neutral compromise going on there?
Typically for me so far has been whether I have the finances and the time at that time to go be in that area because I want to travel. So I would prefer to be the one that travels typically. And I don't want anybody in my space. I'm still really, really particular about anybody that would come in. And if it wasn't a good match or whatever, I don't like the fact that that person was in my space. So I'm really weird about that. So I wouldn't mind if they came to Miami, and I've invited people that have ended up, like the UK guy that didn't come to my space. I prefer because I want to travel, and typically I'm the one that I'm willing to go find a job anywhere in the entire world. I'll quit and move for love, but the man typically can't or won't. So why not me be the one that travels to go check out that new land and his space and his environment and see
It's
what
interesting
that's like.
You say that men won't quit their jobs and move. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's an age thing again?
I don't know why in particular. I think it does have a little bit to do with age because, like I said, my second husband did do that, but he was very reluctant to do that. I had to keep encouraging him that he would do fine. He'd probably do better. He was going to make more money if he came this way. Don't sell himself short. I had to really, really build him up and encourage that. And he did fabulous, by the way. So much better than where he was. And he did it because I literally could not. He was single. He had no kids. There was no choice. If you want me, you're coming here or it's not happening. But now I'm in a position that I don't care about finances anymore. I don't care if I end up being a bartender in New Zealand or UK or wherever. I don't care. I could move anywhere because I just don't have that attitude about that I have to have that same income I've always had. And I have no kids that are in one spot. I have 4 boys that are scattered across the United States. I I can't pick one of them to live by forever. So I need to just do me, do my own thing. So I don't think I'd ask a man to move this way unless he really loved Miami. Or I don't know, maybe we both ended up loving Texas. We moved to Texas together. I don't know, but I'm open to any of it.
So the man you went to visit in the Carolinas, whose house you didn't fall in love with, was there a discussion around, did you like the guy enough to say, well, I like you enough, but I can't live here. I'd go somewhere else for you? Was that something that was a possibility?
I actually loved the North Carolinas, even though it was humid, just like here in Miami. It was his lifestyle that I couldn't deal with. So no, I didn't want to insult him in any way. He didn't deserve that. How I ended that is basically, is that what you're asking, Mark? That how I let him know that this isn't going anywhere?
I live on a sailboat, and that's not everyone's cup of tea. So a woman coming to visit me here for the first time might go, "Oh my goodness, I can't live on a sailboat." But I'm not going to live on a sailboat for the rest of my life. It's just it's a transiting part because of my life journey, and I will move on. So
yeah.
I guess I was saying that everybody can be flexible if given the opportunity, right?
Yes, everybody, including you. If you just say that you fell in love, say that this was just an absolute fabulous woman and you couldn't imagine being without her, would you get off of that sailboat and do your podcast from on the edge of a bay somewhere?
Tomorrow I'd do that, yes.
See, that there you go. See, so that's where I'm at. That if I were to go on a sailboat and I thought, I'm going to at least look. I want to see what this is like. I want to see what this feels like. I could get on a sailboat and see and be willing to look and feel if this is something I could do. But then I have to be honest with myself and not be a chameleon like I have in the past and say, you know what, this wouldn't work for me. Or I could be like, this could work for me for a little while. Let's support your dream for a little while. But then I have this dream. Could you support my dream when we get this kind of past us? Is there any way that we could do a year here and a year here? And you work that out if you're in love.
Absolutely.
But, not everybody's like that.
No, they're not. Now, let's talk about the traveling thing again, because we've talked about traveling to each other's destination city, but we haven't talked about the opportunity of meeting in a neutral location. What do you think about the idea of meeting in a neutral location where it's strange to both of you?
I have never done that, but I have talked to my friend Greta about that. She's the only other admin allowed on my blog. She doesn't want to take part in any huge way, but gosh, if I just need a freaking couple hours, a break of drama from it, she will step in and watch it for a little while to keep the negativity or anything nasty or anything like that happening within the blog. It needs to be watched 24/7 basically. So she'll step in when I can't be there, but she is in a long distance relationship right now. And I do believe she actually had met him a couple times in neutral territory. And she was all about it. I haven't done that, and I don't feel like I would feel comfortable doing that because of all the false pretenses. Again, with the it's both of a holiday for both of you in that situation.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a lot of false readings from each other. I don't know that that's a good way to meet up, because if you're doing this FaceTime chatting thing and getting to know each other, and we're both in our own homes in our comfort zone, now you go for your first chemistry meeting, you go to actually see that first face-to-face touch smell situation, and you're in a foreign spot to both of you, you could be tricked. Our bodies could trick us, and I don't think I'd like that. But I'm different. Greta liked it, and another friend of mine, two other friends of mine on that I made on Facebook and have been. I visited one, went to see her, and then another one came here to visit me. Met in the group. They have done that also, the neutral territory thing. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay. Now, in researching for the show today, I came across a word called catfishing, which I'd never heard of before.
We old people, there's so many people, a lot of people our age don't even know what a hashtag is. When I was hashtagging, hashtag Tinder, hashtag Bumble, whenever I had a particular date, I had people inbox me going, what does that even mean? What do you do with that? I was like, wow, okay. I get it. We're at an age group that not everybody knows what this is. They don't know what ghosting is. They don't know what catfishing is. I have been catfished so many times and ghosted so many times. If I didn't keep a journal, I wouldn't be able to keep track. It's been too many times.
Can you tell my audience what catfishing is? Because I'm amazed by this.
Oh my God. It is the number one reason people hate online dating, I believe. It is when people falsify what they look like or at least hide parts of their body and themselves. And then when you go to actually meet them, they look nothing like their pictures. Nothing. So I don't know where the term actual catfish came from, because I don't know what that particular fish has to do with the fact that maybe because it's unattractive. It is an ugly fish, right? Isn't that kind of what okay, so I think that's got to be where it comes from. How horrible that is. But I have been catfished where one comes to mind straight away. He was and it was a date here in Miami. I had plenty in California too, but the one in Miami was really bad. He was just a normal, average-looking Joe, or you might say bloke, as his face, his glasses. He had the horseshoe hair thing happen at our age. Upper body, not in shape, but looked fine. He dressed nice. He just had a really pleasant look about him. None of his pictures were full body. I hadn't learned to be more particular about that. Not one. That's why I'm very careful. You'll see on my Facebook and on any of my apps, dating apps, there are plenty of full body pictures, and they are recent. They are always within a few months. There is no reason nowadays to put 5-year-old pictures on your 10 years. Even worse, this particular gentleman's were probably 10 years plus old. And none of them were full body. And none of them had a full smile. These are all things I've learned. So you've got to make sure there's a full smile, or otherwise you just swipe left, be done with it. You've got to have a full smile, a full body, and a recent picture. That you have to, if you don't, you're getting swiped left. I don't have time for that. I have over 6,000 Tinder likes at this point. I do not need to weed through and hope that you are what you're saying you are. If you don't have these things, you're swiped to the left. This particular gentleman showed up. His teeth were horrible. He was so big on the bottom half that I felt sorry for him as far as his health. It was horrible. He easily was 10 years older than what the pictures were. There was not much of a horseshoe left. There was pretty much no hair, which I don't care. I actually like bald men too. So the whole thing was just so sad. And at that time, I didn't know how to get out of the date. He was still just as pleasant as I thought he would be from the looks of his face on the pictures. He was such a pleasant man. But basically, he lied to me, and I sat through a meal with him, even though he was a liar. That to me, that's catfishing is a liar. You're a liar. How will I ever trust you? Ever, ever, ever trust you? Because this is your nature. This is how you're going to meet somebody, is by being a liar.
So let's put it out there to the listeners today. If you know why it's called catfishing, let us know. Drop us a note.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why'd that happen? Yeah.
It's an ugly fish, but that's what might be behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Laura, what star sign are you?
I'm a Leo.
You're a Leo. So
yeah. What star sign are you?
I'm, I was born at midnight on the cusp of Aquarius and Capricorn. So I'm a very confused soul.
So am I. I'm a Leo. I'm supposed to be just bold and brave and all that good stuff, but yet I am still a confused soul. I'm getting better though. A lot better.
Before you told me, I was going to guess either Leo or Sagittarius. So you fit,
really?
You fit right into the slot. Yeah. But I asked you that because do you think it makes a difference in terms of who we pair up with and whether or not they're able to handle us?
No, I'm not one of them. Yeah, I'm not one of them. I don't think it matters at all.
Okay, good.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I actually do, because I've had a lot of experience with that, and I've got to the stage in my life where I actually know what star sign I get on with best, and I know their traits and I know their behaviors, and I know whether it's going to either give me that chemistry and connection or whether it's actually going to start some conflict. So I take a bit of note of that.
But how do you know that? From reading what would or wouldn't? Or did you actually get to know that person and then find out, yep, this is exactly what I thought you were?
Well, I've actually been fortunate enough to be with amazing women all over the world, and they have come in with different star signs. So I guess it's just from experience. It's about dating those women and seeing those characteristics and finding out why we didn't end up together, and knowing some of the reasons behind that. I don't put it all down to the star sign thing. I'm just saying it's one area that I think is quite important in understanding who the other person's all about.
Interesting. But you being in the middle of the road, it could always be one way or the other because your particular star sign isn't dead on. You might match with one at one point and not another. I would be so confused.
Well, Aquarians and Capricorns are pretty much, they're fairly similar signs from a lot of different reasons, and they share a lot of different characteristics. So I guess it's not like going across the whole spectrum quite rapidly. It's pretty much a mix and match as far as that goes. So what you get from an Aquarian, you get quite a lot of it from a Capricorn as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
There you go. But we'll share more.
Okay.
We'll share more about that.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the US specific. Is long distance dating in the United States a big thing? Are there a lot of people flying backwards and forwards across the country on dates?
A lot of flying, a lot of driving. So within the blog, so many men have been driving for dates and disappointed dates where women like literally won't even open the door once they get there. So again, the catfishing style thing where they flirt and push the boundaries of getting the man to come to them, and then when the man comes, they don't open the door, they don't acknowledge him, and the poor man's driven 600 or 1,000 miles to come see them, and that's happening quite a bit actually.
Wow. Why is that? Is it because they haven't been transparent enough and honest enough in the beginning?
I believe it's the men are they're choosing to ignore the red flags. So I'm hoping that they stay within the blog and learn and watch and see what the kind women are doing and how to recognize that the unkind women are, God, they're just horrible human beings. I can't even think of the word for a woman that would do that to a man, because that man obviously, all these men that have done this traveling for them, have put their heart, like literally their heart and money and time into just the investment that they have put forth to go meet this woman, and then her do such a thing. Just don't pick up your phone. I can't even imagine. But I don't even remember where we're going with that, because that upsets me so much that happens, and it's apparently happening a lot to a lot of the guys on the blog. They are, I don't know if it's uneducated. I hate when people say, I have guys in my inbox always telling me about the guys in the blog. Oh, those guys, that happened to them because they're so thirsty. I hate that terminology. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, that's not
It's not that these guys are so thirsty. It is literally that they are that bold and willing to do what it takes for love. They want a companion. They crave a companion. They are not thirsty. They are craving companionship so much so that they're ignoring what would be common sense of that woman is not going to answer that door when you get there. Had you reached out and talked to me about this before you ever went there, I would have advised you a million times, don't do it. If you do it, I still got your back, still your friend. I'll listen to you about how horrible that was, but I'm telling you, don't do it. But so far, we're still new, and they don't feel comfortable reaching out to me about that kind of thing.
You raise a good point, because I think in terms of, we all know men are from Mars and women are from Venus and all that.
Yeah.
So what about this scenario where a woman flies across the world to meet a guy? They have a great time for the first. So let's say they're together for. I'm making up a hypothetical.
Sure.
Got to do it on the fly. So
Absolutely.
They spend 2 weeks together. The first week's fantastic. They get on well.
Ooh, that's a long time together, but okay.
I'm trying to buck your rules, you see, so I'm trying to go for something.
Okay, go for it, because these are my rules. They're not everybody's rules, yeah.
So they're together for 2 weeks. The first week's great. The second week's not so great. They start to find out a few things that they may not be compatible about. She goes home. He's fallen in love. She says, look, I'm not sure whether we're going to work out. What does the guy do?
Happens a lot. What does the guy do? He moves on. He literally turned the page. Get back at whatever you were doing. Go hiking, go fishing, go to the gym. Do whatever it takes to get back just your life get your life going again, because obviously to get to that point where you are so enthralled in probably thinking and obsessing about this woman and it being so fabulous that first week, and you're like, where did it go wrong? Where did it go wrong? It doesn't matter where it went wrong. You can't undo it at this point. It is. She had a choice, and her choice was to move on. You have a choice too. Move on. You've got to literally do something else with your life other than think about her. Every time she comes to your mind, do some damn push-ups. Do 10 push-ups, something to make you quit thinking about her. Get your head out of that, because that is gone. It is done. Move on. She doesn't deserve not 1 second of free rent in your head. She, for whatever reason, flipped a switch. If you were both having fun and it was a fabulous week, she was either faking it to get through it, which is horrible also, or she's just cray-cray. That's fine. You don't want that anyways. What, a year down the road if she continued to be that way and then left? Now you've invested a year. Thank God it was only a week. Damn, that hurts. Next.
Good advice. And I think there's a lot of men out there who are listening to this would probably say, well, there could be some hope there at the end of the tunnel. There could be some light. And if I tried, if I beg her, if I write her a, let's see, the one text I got and my girlfriend just got, and there was one in the blog just yesterday, probably about a 5-minute read. You took that long to write it. It probably took you 20 minutes to write it. It took me 5 minutes to read it. And all I did was think, wow, you are really sad. I said no. I said no. So what part of no did you not understand? You writing all of this is not going to change my mind, if that's what you thought. If you thought you were going to manipulate me back into a conversation with you, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And have you ever heard of situations where it has happened, where there has been a turnaround?
Only where the girl's a game player. Only where she's like, oh, I've got him right where I want him. I'm just going to mess with him for a while. What a jerk. Yeah. And they just drag it on and fight back and forth. So the negative gets the negative. It is never once in my experience, even from being, 18 years old and up to now, while I've been in the world of being around men, it has never, ever worked when a man or woman has tried to beg his way back in.
Yeah, good.
It is just more pain for everybody, every single time.
We've rushed through our hour today. It's gone just like that. So that means, first of all, I'm going to have you back on the show at another time so we can talk more, because I'm loving this.
Okay. I know I ramble. I don't know that you would want me back. I'm a rambler.
It's fantastic. So listen, what are your plans for the dating scene for 2020? What are you going to be doing differently next year than you've done this year?
I haven't really thought that far ahead. I'm kind of a day-by-day person, but I did add another app to my repertoire of apps. I added Hinge. So I might be getting rid of, because there's too many going on, so I might be getting rid of Tinder or Bumble. I'm going to be a lot more selective when I'm swiping, and who I choose to go with and how much time I spend with them. I'm gonna keep it to the 30-minute rule for the first date from now on. I have decided that it'll be a 30-minute rule. No matter how great the date is or how bad the date is, I'll give 30 minutes of my time for a first date.
When's your book coming out?
If I could find a publisher, I have short stories I think I started writing, and I've through all my divorces and all my moves, I have kept my books, my little notes with me. Even when I was homeless, I have kept my notes with me from the time I was 6 years old. I have notes.
I've got all kinds of listeners out there, so actually I know there's a publisher who listens to this show. So if you are listening, and you know who you are, Mr. Publisher, if you are listening, and I want to see this book go to print, because there's going to be a lot of great information for it. Now, datingblogandadventures.com is a wonderful, transparent, honest, genuine, real site for you to check out. That's Laura's site. I want you all to go over there after the show and check it out, because it's an amazing, I just find it so amazing on how transparent you are. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart of being able to be so honest and raw and share some of your journey with us, because it's really inspiring, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of other people open up as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. You're my first podcast. I'm no longer a virgin. Thanks.
Well, don't forget, you've dedicated this show to your son, so he's
Jared Graham. There we go. Your mom's no longer a virgin.
He's got to live with this for the rest of his life now. Laura, listen,
I'm sure he's okay.
It's been absolutely a blessing to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining me, and I am going to get you back again, so stay tuned for more.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Mark.
There we are. That was the fabulous Laura Nieddu from Miami in Florida talking to us today about relationships, long distance relationships, and a whole ton of other stuff. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was a blast. Thank you, Laura, for coming on the show again. And if you're looking for more episodes from the Global Travel Channel, head on over to our website at www.globaltravelchannel.com. There you'll find all of our previous episodes. You can download them from Apple iTunes, from Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and a host of other locations. They're all listed on our website, so that's where you need to go to find out. Now, if you love our show, why not share it with friends and family? We want to get more people around the world listening to the Global Travel Channel. And if you know somebody out there that you think might be a great guest for the show, talking anything to do with travel, put them in touch with me. I'd love to hear from them and we'll make a show out of it. So there we go. That's it for this particular episode. My name is Mark Philpott. Until we meet again, I wish you all bon voyage.